to shut down.
And I was like, okay, wait.
Son, son, daughter,
Oh, it's
another son.
the big tollway, just like pictures.
No, I mean, they got families.
Yeah. Thank you.
Friends are
And the bids for the stamp.
park service.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, we got a room full here.
Yeah, I know. Isn't that nice?
I
Oh,
love it.
I didn't even get.
Hey, there you go.
To see everybody.
All the support.
Yep. It's a great tradition.
I don't
And
have
they're always
that.
here.
I just have one cover. Did you get this?
Dan. You guys ready?
Oh, I know.
I'm sorry we didn't get a chance to connect.
I don't think I got that.
Alice,
We have a few minutes after the meeting, Barry.
I'll wait. Yes.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the first workshop meeting of the Board of Trustees for 2019. I have to say, it's so nice to see all of you here. It's great for the support for Deputy Chief. Thank you for coming. And so, to honor our nation's heroes and to honor the men and women in uniform who serve and protect our community, please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Clerk Fitzgerald, may we have the roll call, please?
Certainly, Madam President. Trustee Hansen.
Here.
Trustee Timmett.
Here.
Trustee Allen.
Here.
Trustee Rudolph.
Here.
Trustee Sipperman.
Here.
Trustee Tyrrell.
Here.
All present.
Thank you. Having read the agenda, does any trustee have an addition or deletion to tonight's agenda? Hearing none, we'll move on to citizen comments. This is the time of the meeting where we open it up to the public to address the board. Does anyone in the audience wish to address the board this evening? No? Then we'll move on to the swearing in of Deputy Chief of Fire and EMS, Michael Kelly. Chief?
Thank you, President Gallagher. I'm going to pull an audible, hopefully better than the Bears did. So I'm going to do something first before we do the swearing in of Deputy Chief Kelly. As you know, we're very fortunate that we have some of the members of our department also work as career firefighters in other organizations. And we have two of them in the audience tonight. We have Kevin Gay and we have Dan Manning. What Dan did as a lieutenant in operating his full-time department in Dalton received an incredible citation. You have a copy of it. I'm going to, just for those at home, I'm going to summarize it because this tells you the quality of people. When we did the recruiting to add people, that's the academy that just started last week, Dan came forward from the community and said, I would like to come back and serve. And this is the quality of the person that we have who's here. And he doesn't know this was going to happen, so he probably wants to kill me right about now. So this individual accommodation occurred on September 17, 2018. On this particular evening, the Dalton Fire Department responded to a reported structure fire at 14612 South Center Avenue. Due to the search and rescue operations and life-saving measure decisions made by Dalton Truck Company 15, the Dalton Fire Department is awarding an individual accommodation to the Dalton Fire Department Lieutenant Daniel Manning. The award is presented to an individual who had demonstrated exceptional skills, proficiency, and dedication to duty while operating under an emergency incident. Lieutenant Manning encountered heavy fire and smoke conditions while doing a walk around the building. According to Lieutenant Manning's summary report, as I checked the house door, I found it was unlocked. It would not open, so I pushed on it and saw the outline of an arm in the door gap. Pushed the door enough to see an unconscious male victim wedged in a bicycle and spare bicycle wheel with his leg pinned between the door and the floor. After another radio transmission for help, I began removing the debris from the victim. I was able to free the victim from the bicycle and debris, at which time I made the decision to pull as hard as I could, which freed the victim's leg from the door wedge. I dragged the victim out around the house and through the side yard until I reached the fence. I heard command call the ambulance. When he saw me, I laid the victim in the yard and began CPR until I was relieved by EMS. Lieutenant Daniel Manning's skill and courage saved the person's life. Crews on the fire scene were later informed that the victim was successfully revived and talking with the hospital staff within an hour of the incident. So this will give you an idea of the quality of person. Daniel, would you please stand? Did you know this was coming? So I want to tell you, I couldn't be more proud to have you as a part of our department. And for all these other firefighters who know what that takes and what you did that day, it's amazing. And I've had the privilege to know Dan's family and know his dad really well. That's the stock that he comes from. But God bless you. You are a true hero, and we're very proud to have you on our department.
Chief, if I could just say a word.
That was the first one.
Could I just say a
Please,
word,
no,
Chief?
please
Yeah.
do.
Dan, congratulations on your commendation. It's a well-deserved acknowledgement of your bravery and selflessness in a very dangerous and life-threatening situation. On behalf of the board, it's a privilege to hear of your bravery, and we are honored that we can count you among our paid-on-call firefighters. So thank you very much.
One other audible, if it's okay. I'm going to get myself in a lot of trouble this way. We're very blessed, as you know, under the Public Health and Safety Report, we received our ISO evaluation from the Insurance and Services Corporation. I wanted to just bring it up real quickly while we have all the members of our department here. As you know, the rating was very impressive, rated at a 2 now from what was a 3, which is an incredible accomplishment for a paid-on-call department. But there's 2 things I want to say that I think are really important. One is that rating has nothing to do with me. My name was on the letter. It has to do with everybody you see sitting here, because these are the people. The reason our rating could be that low is because of the number of people we have in the department. That means people who make 66% of the drills, 10% of over 1,200 calls. That's all these folks right here. So that's why we got the rating. The second reason we have the rating we have is the support of the other people that you see, our full-time department neighbors who took the time to come tonight to honor Mike. Without them and their support, we don't operate as well as a team. And that just happened with the house fire that we had yesterday. So we're very blessed on a number of levels, but I wanted the board to be able to see all the people before they left who really, and we'll talk more about the ISO report under public health and safety. So I just wanted to mention that.
Thank you.
So now, no more audibles, I promise. So now we're going to get to the promotion. So let me start off by saying we have retired Deputy Chief Gary Mayer in the audience tonight. That's hard, that's a mouthful for me to say. Gary was very instrumental in the ISO report. Mike was who I asked to actually put everything together to make that report happen. And I've been very blessed over the years to have special people as being my deputy chief. And so back a few years ago when we knew that our inspector was going to be retiring, I approached the village and said, can we do something about succession planning? I'd like to formalize, make a fire prevention bureau, but I would like that position of fire marshal to be established, but they're also going to have to be a paramedic. Because we are, as you know, more than 80% of our calls are EMS. EMS is evolving, the services that we need to provide are evolving, so we need somebody who not only has the ability to run a fire prevention bureau, but also can see forward into EMS. And one person came into my mind, somebody that I had the extreme honor to be my deputy for over 9 years in Hinsdale, and that was Mike. Mike at the time had come up through the ranks at Hinsdale, had retired as chief, had gone to the Bartlett Fire Protection District, was very happy and well treated there as the assistant chief, but we reached out and said, would you be interested in doing that? So it'd be a dual role, one, and then second being, when we have a great deputy chief in place, when he decides to retire, would you be part of the succession plan to move up? Mike sat, talked with his family, thought about it, made a tough decision to have to leave Bartlett, and came and became our fire marshal and has raised the level of what we do in terms of protecting the community to another level. As he got promoted in Hinsdale, at any point on any one of those ranks, he could have said, no longer my paramedic, no longer CE that's done every 6 months. If you don't make it, no matter what your rank is, you are no longer a paramedic. He has continued to do that for over 30 years, serving in that role actively in Hinsdale till his retirement, serving in that role in Bartlett, and certainly has served in that role as our fire marshal in the position that he's in. I can tell you in terms of integrity, I don't know anybody who's got any more. I don't know anybody who, for me, at the time when he was at Hinsdale, I had a son that was very ill. He ran the place while I took care of my son. Never once complaining, never once arguing, and probably did it a whole lot better than I would have. He had stood to be a role model as he's come into our department. We've asked him to pump apparatus. We've asked him to go on the ambulance. We've asked him to do everything we would ask an entry-level firefighter to do, and he did it with pride and showed us why he's a role model for our people. So I couldn't be more honored and more excited about telling you that we lost an incredible deputy chief. Luckily, to something that's happy retirement, we are replacing him with another awesome deputy chief. So I'm going to ask Deputy Chief Kelly and his family to step up, and I'll ask Bridget if you would come over as village clerk and issue the oath.
So we'll do an oath and then you'll sign this. Do not need a microphone anymore?
No. Why don't you stay by the podium?
Okay, so you'll raise your right hand. I state your name,
I, Michael Kelly,
having been appointed
having been appointed
to the office of Deputy Chief of Fire EMS
to the office of Deputy Chief of Fire and EMS
in the village of Western Springs,
in the village of Western Springs,
in the county of Cook,
in the county of Cook,
I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and that I, and the municipal code of
And-
Western Springs,
and the municipal code of Western Springs,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
of Deputy Chief of Fire EMS
of Deputy Chief of Fire and EMS
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Congratulations.
And we're going to have his son now pin his badge on.
You should have had a dry run.
We'll get out of the way and let Mike introduce his family.
So, thank you very much. I'd like to introduce my wife Jean, my son Andrew, my daughter Brittany, my son David, and my other daughter Bridget. And is it okay if I say a few words?
Oh, please do.
I remember last time I was up here, I got yelled at because I was, facing this way, instead of facing this way, so not exactly sure which way I should stand, but certainly would like to thank Chief Kenny, Manager Velkme, the former village manager Higgins, and certainly the entire board for this opportunity. I spoke at the Public Health and Safety meeting last week and said how blessed I feel to have worked 30 plus years in the fire service at the different departments and villages that I've worked at. And as you can see, my friends from Hinsdale, friends from Bartlett that have traveled a long way to be here, and other members of the fire service and police departments that I've worked with in the past. I'm so humbled that you've come tonight. But I've been blessed because of the people that I've worked with in the past. And that certainly is no different in Western Springs. As I came here, I was welcomed and accepted, and as a new person coming into an organization, sometimes that's a little filled with anxiety, but the people here in the fire department were awesome, and even the other departments, staff, and village board, it's been really great and welcoming and made that transition that much easier. But I certainly would be wrong if I didn't recognize my family. As a career in the fire service, you miss a lot of things. Birthdays and special events and holidays, and over the past 30 years, I've missed a lot of stuff. And Jean's kept our family moving forward, and I love you for that, and I appreciate that, and thank all of you guys for being here today and supporting me in the different decisions I've made in the fire service, some that may not have been as easy as others, but thank you very much. I love you guys for that.
Deputy Chief, if I could just say a few words on behalf of the board, congratulations on your appointment. Your CV, your background, your experience, your education, your continuing education, especially in the EMS field, is truly commendable, and your experience will be a great benefit to the department and also to the residents of the village. We're honored to have you as our Deputy Chief and wish you many years of success in that post. Thank you. Okay. Moving on, you guys, you're welcome to stay.
I bet they're getting cake.
You are more than welcome to stay, however, yeah, cake in the other room.
Yeah. My grandfather's name was Michael J. Kelly.
Oh.
Very common name. My maiden name is McGuire, but my mother's maiden name was Kelly.
In the room clears out.
I was going to say, cake or us? What do you
That's
think,
right.
you know?
Cake is a big winner tonight.
Yeah. Okay, moving on to the consideration of the agenda items for tonight's meeting. Public Works and Water, Trustee Allen.
Thank you, President Gallagher. My report is lengthy, so be forewarned. Capital summary report in our packet is a memo from Director Super dated January 3rd. We talked about this in committee about the capital summary report coming out with a new version for 2019. Try to simplify both the readability of it and also the maintenance or preparation of it to facilitate regular updates. But the key points with it is to have some way to kind of track to make sure budgets remain on time and on costs, and to be comprehensive to include all types of costs: construction, design, inspection, engineering, both aggregate gross and then net of any reimbursement, and to cover all types of funds that it may go in. But one of the things we talked about, which I wanted to share with you, is that we kind of view this as a living document, and with half the board transitioning off later this year, the new people might have things that they want to focus on. So feel free if there's things you want to see, either talk to Director Super or myself, and we can try to figure out a way to incorporate that into that document, because really it's for all of us and our residents. A couple other points just to highlight: the 2018 sewer televising and road programs were completed, although some landscaping work into 2019 for Lawn and Johnson might remain. Major 2019 projects that we will be tracking: the Ridgewood Oaks Detention Basin, of course, well number 5, and the standpipe repainting. Both of those last two are IEPA loans, and the 2019 roadway program is primarily going to be Clausen Avenue, although not exclusively. So are there any comments on that, or? Okay. Item B, 2019, or I'm sorry, sewer televising contract renewal. In your packet was a memo. We discussed this at a committee and are recommending Chicago Trenchless to get the same contract, or renewable contract at 2016 rates. The total budget for this is about $90,000. We would like to put that on the omnibus bill, or omnibus vote, I'm sorry, for January 28th. Going to be covered this year is Old Town South, Fairview Estates, and Commonwealth. And we did hear a bit of good news on this. As you may recall, this was a mandated requirement to check sewers. We were allowed 5 years to do it, but now going forward, since we will have completed all the roads in the village, or I'm sorry, all the sewers in the village, going forward, we only have to do like kind of the worst 15%. So it's not a complete renewal every 5 years. We can just focus on the areas that kind of flagged out as needing some work. So that was a little bit of good news on that project. Also in your packet, number C, sidewalk shaving contract renewal with Safe Step. They also were honoring their rates, this time from 2017. We discussed this at committee and recommend to put this on the omnibus for 128. This was about a $50,000 per year budget, and this is where they just shave off when sidewalks, due to settling, get a couple inches displaced, and to make it to reduce any kind of trip hazard. Item D, standpipe painting bid. We talked a lot about this at committee. The recommendation is to D&M Painting. They were the low cost bidder for a bid of $84,400. 844,000. I'm sorry. Thank you, Trustee Hansen. Don't get confused about the deduct amount. That was if you only wanted to paint the lower third, which is the worst part, and not paint the upper 2/3. You could deduct a price. We kind of talked about that and felt it didn't make sense. Staff that was their staff recommendation as well too. Whoever heard of painting a third of the house, as one trustee commented. The color would be sky blue. The concept is sort of as you're looking at the tall tower over by South Campus, it would sort of blend in with the sky. And we spent a lot of time about what are the impacts of that. A couple points on that. Baxter and Woodman would be supervising the project. That cost was not in this bid, but it is something we had contemplated for the overall IPA. They're going to put a shroud over the tower when the actual work is getting done to minimize any kind of dust coming off of it. Staff is going to meet also with both the school and the owner of Garden Markets just to kind of fill them in on the project, staging, how the equipment will come in and out. It is going to take a while. It's about a 100-day project from start to finish. And we also wanted to talk about impact to residents, because as they're emptying the tank and refilling it, residents may notice some differences in pressure and or some minor discolorations, and we just wanted to get that out there as while that's being done. So some more to come on the kind of communication front, but that would primarily be in the Springdale area because they would be the closest to that. One of the things staff is also recommending, or will plan to do, is they're going to flush all the hydrants in the village ahead of doing this, so that will help to clear out the lines as well too, to try to minimize any kind of disruption with that. Okay, any questions on the standpipe?
Just so that the potential changes in pressure or discoloration, would that last for the duration of the project? Any idea?
I don't think so, but Director Super, can you elaborate?
Yeah, it wouldn't last for the duration. It would likely occur up front, probably in the first week or two of the project, once we isolate the tank off, and then that's where you'd see some kind of changes in flow in the system, and then things should stabilize out after.
Oh, okay, okay. So pretty minimal then in terms of the
We hope fairly minimal.
Okay.
We're planning on doing some sort of resident just Q&A meeting, probably early March.
Okay, thank you.
Why does that have to happen at all if there's painting the exterior, or are they doing something
We're doing
inside?
the interior
Oh,
as
interior
well.
also,
Correct.
okay.
And they completely drain the water tower, so it's essentially it's coming offline for a few months. So
It's a couple months offline?
Yeah, it's about
Where-
100 days, as Trustee Allen
Right.
said, so we are looking to bring it back online around July.
And there's no disruption in services with the water?
No, I mean, in terms of
With the
overall
understand pipe.
distribution, everybody else should remain with service. You know, we might have some minor pressure or change in flow issues as we take the system offline, but it'll balance itself out as that occurs.
What about the other standpipe? When will we do that one?
That is scheduled for next year,
Next year?
yes.
And that'll be, I imagine, considerably more than this?
Yes, the price is, the current engineer's estimate is right around or just over $1 million, just because of the complexity, because it's an elevated tank.
Okay.
And I'm just curious, how often does this tank have to be repainted or paint? I've honestly never seen it painted in the 30 years I've lived
Recommended
there.
schedule is about every 15 years or so.
I'm just curious.
We did both of our tanks last in the late 90s.
Oh, okay.
almost 20 years ago.
Yeah, we're a little overdue.
Just curious, yeah.
Good questions. Item E, high service pump replacement. There's a memo in our packets. These are the pumps that send the finished water from the plant to the water mains, through the water mains to the two water towers. We expect bids will come back, and we would like to award them at the January 28th meeting. So there's a little bit tight schedule to get those in. So in any event, we would like to put the awards directly on the January 28th, the final award, the low-cost award on the 28th meeting, as opposed to going through another committee and waiting another month. Item F, low-pressure reverse osmosis membrane. We talked about this fairly extensively during the budgeting. These need to be replaced periodically. In your packet is a memo from Ms. Duffy, Water Plant Superintendent. Due to a limited amount of vendors, though, we would like to approve a bid waiver. The limited amount of vendors, really, because it's kind of comprehensive to help with the procurement, installation, and maintenance. So we discussed this at committee and agreed with staff's recommendation that we'd like to put, and help me with my wording, Attorney Drusik, that we would put on the January 28th omnibus that we would go ahead and award to go a non, or
Bid.
an
Bid-
exclusive
waive the
bid.
bid
Yeah.
process.
So anyway, that was what we came out with committee on that. Okay. Last thing on other, we did also talk about the 2016 roadway referendum. As you may recall, we looked at some of the additional costs that should be rolled into it, like inspection and design engineering, some of the changes to the estimates. They are substantial, but what we discussed was that we would bring it in February to the Infrastructure Commission so that they could study it a little bit more and understand the impact. Doesn't impact 2019, the roadway project that we are going to do, but we wanted to look at it over the cost of the whole 10-year road referendum that was recently completed. So if there are no other questions, that concludes my report. Thank you, President Gallagher.
Thank you, Trustee Allen. Moving on to Properties and Recreation Committee, Trustee Hansen.
Thank you, President Gallagher. The first item on mine is the capital summary report, and it is in your packet, so I'm sure you've had a chance to look at it, but for those who haven't, briefly, the East Train Platform punch list was provided to Passion Construction in October. The list was considered pre-final, and once the landscaping is complete, an additional final punch list will be provided. The pre-final list was divided into several categories: drainage, electrical, concrete, landscaping, and miscellaneous. And there are approximately 50 items that required completion, and about 33% of these items have been completed to date. Mostly dealing with the drainage issues. Some items are dependent upon the precast curb manufacturer obtaining IDOT material certification. The manufacturer unfortunately had a flood at their facility that set things back as it contaminated most of their materials. So replacement of the concrete stone caps and fencing that was damaged this fall from an accident will take place. Is that completed? It was taking place this week, or no?
It started last week. I haven't had a chance to go out there to see if
Okay.
they completed all of the work yet.
All right, should be completed soon. And some of the punch list items about the landscaping and everything will require warmer temperatures consistently to complete. So I would say this spring that platform will be looking very, very spiffy and be completed and everything, okay? Next item is the Wolf Road Bike Path engineering work on this is continuing. The village engineer has completed the impact assessment for tree removals per the Forest Preserve's request. The potential impact cost on this project may be substantial, and the village staff is currently coordinating with the Forest Preserve to determine if the impact fees can be waived as part of the intergovernmental agreement. And as far as I know, they have not responded yet. Okay, so staff will be scheduling a meeting with them. Next item is the Flag Creek Greenway. A public meeting will be held in February, hopefully, to discuss the Flag Creek Greenway. In December, representatives from our village, Western Springs, and Burr Ridge, Indian Head Park, and Hinsdale met to discuss potential improvements to the Plainfield Road Bridge going over 294. The tollway is going to be doing improvements on that and possibly including a protected path on the north end of the south side of the bridge. I'm sorry. And they will, so we're hoping that perhaps these improvements could allow for the village's project along Flag Creek to interface with this path, but much work still needs to be done on this. The Cook County Highway Department maintains Plainfield Road, and it's anticipated that they will complete Phase 1 engineering for Plainfield Road sometime in the next 12 to 24 months. So we're moving along on that. I think that's all for the capital summary report. The next item is sort of a routine item. It's a tree trimming contract renewal for 2019, and this is with Winkler's Tree Service. They've agreed to renew the 2019 contract at the 2016 prices, which they've held now for 3 years. You can see that their prices are listed there, and they are compared to other, the bid table is in there showing the different bids. And so Winkler's has agreed to perform their duties at the 2016 prices with a budget of $105,000, and this is for tree trimming. And we recommend, the committee recommends that we move that on to the omnibus to vote on in 2 weeks. The next item is also a renewal, contract renewal, but this is for tree removal, and this is for Homer Tree Care. for a budget of there's a total budget of $75,000, but they are sticking with their 2018 prices, and staff has been, I should have said that too for Winkler, that the staff is very comfortable with these vendors, that feel they do a good job and everything. So that we would also request that that be placed on the omnibus to renew that contract with Homer Tree Care out of Homer Glen, I think they are. And then the next item is also a routine item, and this is for the janitorial services contract with Unimax Management Corporation. They've requested an extension of the 2017 janitorial services contract at the same unit prices, which is $3,210 a month for cleaning services provided to the village buildings, specifically Village Hall, Fire Station number 1, the Community Development Department, Fire Station number 2, the Train Depot, Public Works Garage, and the reverse osmosis water treatment plant. And staff is pleased with their work and recommends that this contract be renewed for 2019. So that will also be on the omnibus. And the last item, I'm not sure, President Gallagher, if you're going to read it or shall I? It's the Arbor Day proclamation
The Arbor Day for
April 26th. I don't know why it's on
Typically, we do the proclamation
in January.
in January or February. The village president has to, or not the proclamation, I'm sorry, there's a ordinance that we have to pass declaring Arbor Day as part of the village. So we'll have the complete language for that for the second meeting or for the February.
Okay.
But we have to complete that as part of our application for Arbor Day, as part of the tree certification program.
Okay, I don't think we need to.
I don't think we need to read this, but just so
Yeah,
people
it wouldn't be for tonight.
people can plan ahead, Arbor Day is April 26, 2019.
Mark your calendars.
And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Trustee Hansen. We'll put those contract renewals on the omnibus.
Thank you.
Trustee Allen?
Yeah, I had a question for Jeff on
I was gonna say, don't ask me anything.
You're fine, you did a good job. On the Wolf Road bike path, what does, until we get an agreement on the impact fees, does that change our calendar at all?
In terms of
Like the schedule of when we would do the work?
It does. There are several things that are going on there. There's some coordination with IDOT that's going on currently, and which we're waiting for IDOT to proactively provide us with data. And they're having some contractual issues, not being able to provide that data, which has kind of slowed us down. But I assure you that we are pushing very, very hard to get them to react. Or at some point in time, I'm going to kind of corral everybody around and say it's time to move forward. We can't wait around for IDOT to do their work. But from the sense of the county and the impact fees from the county, there's some additional work that we're doing behind the scenes related to the village's cooperation with the county in the past on other types of projects. And what I'm hoping to do is to utilize that data and that information to try and offset some of the county's impact fees. So that's currently happening. Staff is working with our office, and we're currently putting all that data together. We'll be submitting that in terms of timeline. Yes, it's kind of set us back a few months.
Thank you. I guess with the impact fees, this is for potential tree removal, and I guess, is that right?
That is correct.
And I guess I'm curious, like, why, the county's not putting up any money for this project, right? Is that, so I just didn't understand why we would have to pay impact fees for something that's benefiting their property, and we're apparently using their
It's a very good question.
design that they wanted.
I think it's pretty simple. They're the custodians of the trees, and they feel obligated that, and it is their policy, that if somebody removes trees on their property, they're obligated to compensate them for that.
Compensate the Forest Preserve District.
That is correct.
Yes.
What type of prices do they, I mean, what does that run?
Right now, we've calculated that price to be about $45,000.
Hopefully not per tree.
Well, we're-
In total right now.
$45,000 to provide a benefit to the users of the forest preserve.
Right.
I don't necessarily disagree with that. Mike, we discussed, I think that the important part is that we have information, we know what that impact fee is approximately. There's been no agreement on that impact fee. We've simply calculated it and provided it to the Forest Preserve District, but I also believe that the village holds information related to services that the village has previously provided to the Forest Preserve District in terms of water and those type of things in the past, which we want to try and utilize to offset some of the cost of their impact fees. I don't know where that's going to go, but it's a discussion that needs to be had, and will wrap up some longer-term issues with the villages providing water services and stuff to the Forest Preserve District's facilities.
Well, thank you, Jeff. 0 sounds like a good number to end up with.
Well, are these fees negotiable?
They may owe us money.
Yes.
Are they negotiable? Do they just say, this is what we're gonna charge for this swath of land?
Tree impact fees are not negotiable. They have a set policy and a set fee on a per inch diameter tree basis, very common. And it's there because that's what they do. They protect forest and they protect the trees. And so it's very common for Forest Preserve Districts to have this type of impact fee.
Right, but so the actual fee per tree is not negotiable, but whether or not they will assess the entire impact to us is negotiable, I believe, and that's
correct.
You know, I don't think we even have to go to past services because we are providing such a benefit to the users of the
Right.
Forest Preserve, not just the community residents in Western Springs, but the entire population in the region. So to me, it's a no-brainer.
It'll be a discussion with the Forest Preserve District, and we certainly understand the position. We've taken that position with the village already, letting them know that we didn't think that any fees were appropriate for this particular path, but those discussions will happen at a little bit higher level in the Forest Preserve District, and I'm sure that we'll come to a reasonable conclusion.
Will we be armed with any data that places a dollar value on the services that we've provided and continue to provide?
Yes, we are. That's information that we're collecting right now. As you know, as part of the path, the village is obligated to do maintenance and holds maintenance responsibilities in perpetuity for the path. So there's a lot of things that the village is contributing to this that need to be considered by the Forest Preserve District. In addition to the pure fact that this is an enhancement, it connects people. It's all about connectivity. It's about green infrastructure and providing people opportunities, whether it's a Western Springs resident or somebody else that may be coming through town, other bike clubs and things that would particularly use these things. It's part of the path system. So there's a lot of benefit, and they take different views of it, I think, initially. We'll see what kind of view they take of it after we approach them here within probably the next 30 days or so.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Then we'll move on to Finance Committee, Trustee Ruda.
Thank you, President Gallagher. I have no report other than to note that the Finance Committee will meet on January 24th at 7:30 a.m. We will at that time be looking at the December financial reports. And also the Police Pension Board meets on January 29th at 7 p.m. And that's all I have for now.
Thank you.
No questions.
Thank you. Moving on to Public Health and Safety, Trustee Sipperman.
Thank you, President Gallagher. Colleagues, the following items were presented and discussed at our January 9th Public Health and Safety Committee meeting in our advance to this body for discussion. The first item is a request submitted by Chief Buds to purchase 29 new firearms and declare the existing firearms surplus property. The Chief's comprehensive memorandum included in your packets details the rationale supporting this replacement initiative, including the justification, net cost not to exceed $4,692, due to an excellent trade-in credit from an authorized and vetted vendor. The existing firearms are approximately 17 years old and have exhibited reliability and repair issues, causing concern to be registered by the department's trained firearms instructors. The purchase has been approved pursuant to fiscal year 2019 capital improvement program, and the committee requests that both of these issues advance to the next omnibus.
Okay.
Second item is a request to purchase a new marked police vehicle at a total cost not to exceed $24,741 that is also included in the fiscal year 2019 capital improvement program. The purchase agreement would be with Curry Motors Fleet in Frankfurt, who was awarded the regional bid price that includes a trade-in credit of $6,000 against the purchase price quoted. The committee also requests that this purchase and the declaration of the existing 2015 vehicle as surplus be added to the next omnibus.
We'll add that. Thank you.
The third item has already been initiated at tonight's meeting by Chief Kenny. That deals with the Insurance Services Office Incorporated report. The ISO, Insurance Services Office Incorporated, is an independent municipal fire suppression evaluator that provides its audit findings and rating scores to fire departments, insurance companies, insurance regulators, and communities about the various risk levels. The ISO analyzes relevant data recognized by the National Fire Protection Association collected during the audit and assigns a public protection classification number ranging from 1 to 10, the highest rating being 1 and the lowest 10. The Western Springs Fire Department's last ISO rating in 2012 was 77 points, meriting a Class 3 rating. The recent ISO rating dated December 21st, 2018, with a score of 87.24, received a Class 2 rating. Chief Kenny and the department and all of municipal services that prepared the village for this rating deserve merit and our appreciation. Chief Kenny, do you have anything to add to this?
The other point, thank you, Trustee Silverman. The other point I wanted to make is the categories that are evaluated. One of the categories specifically is water supply. So for Director Supert as well as for Superintendent Duffy, we met months ago before ISO was coming in. They gave great expertise and time. Our water system, it's a total of 40 points that you can get, and their overall score was 38.59 out of 40. That has a huge impact on LTAC. Our dispatch center also was included in that rating, along with our fire department. So as I mentioned earlier, we get credit for the number of people we have on the department that gives us a high score. Where we get really hit on is what they call company personnel, meaning how many people are on duty 24/7 in the station. Based on our model, that's a score we can't increase. But I'm extremely proud of what our people did, specifically Deputy Chief Kelly, Division Chief Gallagher, for the work that they did, the paperwork. There's a lot of administrative things. When the evaluator came in, he was only there for 4 hours. Other communities, they're there for days. But based on what everything was put together and the way it was put together, I'll put us up against any organization in terms of the quality of people that we have. So very, very proud of what our folks do and what they do. Those neighbors protecting neighbors, they put their money where their mouth was.
Maybe just one other point just to highlight that I think it's less than 5% of the departments get that 2 or better designation across the country, so it's really pretty impressive.
That's correct.
So
They evaluate
kudos to
over
the
46,000
department and the staff.
departments, and less than 4% get a score of 2 or lower. Thank you for mentioning it.
This is a great report card, Chief.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Madam President, I just have one other item. I would just like to call attention to a recent crime alert posted by Chief Buds regarding some burglaries, car burglaries, where we're asking once again for residents to exercise care in locking vehicles and garages. to thwart any criminals that are attempting to steal their property. Chief?
Thank you. I also would like to remind everybody to, at home, to look into our Neighborhood Watch program. We really want to make that go to the next level this year with our crime prevention officer. If anybody would like information on that, please reach out to us and we'll get you that. And also, I highly encourage everybody to follow our Facebook activity, our police Facebook program, because we're constantly updating that. In fact, we just posted a video that I think would be very helpful that we captured in the 4,000 block of Western last night regarding these crimes. So please, if anybody saw anything, let us know, and we'll keep everybody posted as any developments happen. Thank you, Trustee Sifferman.
Thank you, Chief. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Trustee Sifferman. Yeah, I don't think we can say that often enough. Please, lock your doors, take your key fobs with you when you go inside, and be careful. Thank you. And congratulations, Chief Kenny, on the ISO rating. We're very, very pleased to see that, and kudos to your department, kudos to municipal services and the water department too. It truly takes a village. Thank you. Moving on to General Government Committee, Trustee Timmick.
Thank you, President Gallagher. Just a few items to cover this evening, and of which only one is ready for action at this point. First up is an update on our refuse and recycling RFP. We discussed this at the just concluded General Government meeting that was prior to this meeting. We are pushing ahead. Current timeline suggests we'll put the RFP out to the potential participants on or around the 23rd of this month, with the goal, again, of wrapping up the process of reviewing and validating those RFP responses and coming to a conclusion in the April timeframe in terms of being able to award and approve a contract. The village staff has done a great job of capturing the criteria that we want to include in the RFP, both reinforcing some of the services we have currently, but also potentially adding some new ones as well. So I think the process will yield a good result in terms of the feedback we'll get or the responses from the different participants. There's probably 3 or 4 or so that it will go to initially, but the assumption is that there will be some that will provide responses unsolicited. So we should have a good base to work from in terms of our options moving forward if we choose to stick with the incumbent or potentially go with someone new. So we'll continue pushing on that and provide updates as they come available.
Thank you.
Okay. The next one is the one that we would want to take action on here in January, and that is a resolution in support of a State of Illinois capital bill. So Metra has approached the village, asked that we support their efforts to get a transportation bill passed at the state level. The state has not had a transportation bill since 2010, and Metra sees that there's an urgent need for this in terms of the work that needs to be done on tracks, bridges, updating cars, shelters, and other things of that nature. So assuming we're all okay with that, we will issue the resolution here in January. It is, I'll say, mostly symbolic in nature. There's no obligation on the village in terms of getting involved in any funding or anything like that. So just, again, voicing our support for a transportation bill, especially now that we have the new governor in place. See if we can get something done here after waiting 8 years, I guess. So that one will be on the omnibus.
Okay.
A couple more to go. We also met with a representative from the French Market this evening. The contract is up for that. We discussed how the French Market is doing here in the village, interest to continue that relationship. Consensus of the committee was that we would like to continue on with the French Market. Also, too, we think that by formalizing or signifying our involvement and wanting to continue with this sooner and earlier in the process here, hopefully in the February timeframe, they might be able to bring in a better showing in terms of vendors. So the earlier they can confirm that Western Springs will have a market, the better they can get the word out to the potential vendors and maybe grow the number of participants. Request from the French Market provider is that we would potentially start the season a couple of weeks earlier than we have in the past. But generally, all other things in terms of the relationship would stay the same. The one piece of feedback that we're hoping to get from the rest of the trustees this evening, though, would be any feedback around the length of the contract. So the initial contract that we did with them was 8 years in length, which is quite long. We don't want to repeat that, but we also want to move away from a year-to-year thing. What we'd like to do is try to signify a little bit more commitment from the village, maybe, again, help them drum up some more interest and support from the vendor base. So We were thinking 3 years potentially. Wanted to see what the rest of the trustees felt though.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, I was thinking, 3 sounds good, yeah.
I don't have any objection, but did you want some flexibility in terms of being able to schedule at times, dates, things like that?
In terms of alternating the days we would hold the market, or?
Yeah, I mean, it's over the years it's evolved a little bit, and I just didn't know if if you sign a contract, if it would allow for that type of flexibility for changes. That would be the only point.
We hadn't talked about putting language in the contract to address that. We did talk about whether we liked the Sunday setup, and generally that was the feeling was we would want to continue, but again, open for feedback. Generally, the idea is that it was a little bit more relaxed, a little bit more laid back. People weren't feeling the hustle and bustle on a Thursday evening, as an example, to get off the train, go to the market, and get home. And then if we were to look at a Saturday, potentially, we would be going up against some of the other larger, more established markets. So that was kind of why we were leaning towards staying with the Sunday as is.
Okay.
Would that be something that we could put in there to have that flexibility, or no? It would just be as far as...
That's not a problem, and I believe the agreement already has some flexibility in terms of that the parties by mutual agreement can adjust dates or times.
Okay.
What I bring back, I'll make sure that that's highlighted.
Okay.
And I just have a quick question. We used, in years past, there was an agreement with the French Market that there would always be a minimum of 10 vendors. Is that still, going to be the situation? Because I felt last year that some days they did not have 10 vendors, or
I agree.
barely,
And that is in their contract, I believe.
So we'll make sure that that's in the language as well. We did discuss a little bit in terms of what we've typically had, and I'll have to find my notes, but there were 11 to 14 on average tents occupied, but to your point, sometimes vendors were using more than one tent, so it could be a little deceiving there. The representative that joined us did state that since we were a little late last year renewing the contract, they weren't able to get the word out that we were going to be on the calendar. So that is, could help the sooner we get this done. But it would be good to make sure we enforce the minimum if it's in there. And then the last one is just under the other business, and the village did receive a draft of an intergovernment agreement from the tollway. That came in last week. I think everybody received that in their packets over the weekend. The village staff is in the process of reviewing that and pulling together their comments and feedback on that. So no action, just want to acknowledge that we did receive it, and there'll be some future discussion forthcoming on that. And that concludes my report for this evening.
Thank you, Trustee Timmick. Any questions of Trustee Timmick?
Yeah, I had one, and I wasn't sure if this was general government or not, but we had talked about developing objectives for the village manager. I just didn't know for 2019 if that's in process or status.
I'm sorry,
He was asking about the village manager goals.
Oh.
Developing them. Is that going under general government, or?
No, we had talked about separately meeting on a weekend or on an off Monday with Manager Velkme to address that. Manager Velkme and I have discussed that. I ask all of you to give me your availability here in January going into February now, and we'll try to come up with a date where we can all meet for an hour or so.
Thank you.
Yes.
That's it.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to Planning and Zoning Committee, Trustee Terrell.
Thank you, President Gallagher. Regarding well number 5, the omnibus, at our next meeting, we'll have the application for conditional use permit for well number 5. It was determined by the commission on December 20th that the conditional use permit had met all of the criteria for moving forward. Just to remind you, the village owns that property. It is zoned as R2 single family residential. The R2 district allows municipal utilities and services as conditional use. The water main work will also be accommodated by a 12 by 20 foot one-story building that we've discussed. The thought is that we will be able to remove the village's dependence on the shallow well with the well number 5. So again, this went to the commission. They didn't have any problem with it at all. We didn't have any problem with the Building and Zoning Committee, and it will be on the omnibus on the next month, or at the end of the month for your consideration. That's all I would have, President Gallagher.
Thank you, Trustee Terrell. Any questions of Trustee Terrell?
I just had the one question about the structure. So in the packet, there is a sample photo exhibit E. So we are back to the 12 by 20 building, similar to what's in the photo?
Yeah, that's the footprint that's common that we just needed to house the electrical equipment. We did, prior to meeting with this, go back and forth with the engineer talking about whether we should have a housing or if we should just have the electrical equipment in a weatherproof enclosure. Really why we went with the building rather than enclosures. The enclosure would require some sort of fencing around it, and being that's near sports fields and something like that, if a ball or something like that there. From a practical standpoint, it made more sense to just have the complete building enclosure.
And that building would be solely used for that? There wouldn't be, I'll say, like drinking fountains, washrooms, or anything?
No, we had that very, very early on when we had some conversations with the park district, but that has not come back around with anything.
Okay.
Just for the electrical equipment.
Great, thanks.
And that building would be off the baseball field so that there'd be no safety issue?
Correct, yes, it would be located in our right-of-way west of the baseball field.
Okay, thank you.
And it's about the size of a garage,
It's approximately, yeah.
like a one-car garage?
Yeah, 14 by 20 feet or so. We're gonna, as we get into the process this summer, that portion of the project won't be bid until later this summer. We're gonna work on some design elements to see what's the most appropriate construction materials they use out there. So what we included in the photo for the plan commission was a prototypical kind of a prefab structure that's used on some of these sites, but there's many different routes we can go with what the building actually looks like.
So we could make it a little more attractive?
Yes.
Okay.
We talked about it, plan
Just
commission
check.
meeting, about using some of the similar design elements we used at the South Fire Station, and kind of getting a residential component in there, but that was discussed.
Okay.
With the proximity to former President Rodiger's home, we might make sure there's some pavers around that building.
It's a brick building though, right?
It doesn't have to be a brick building. We can use it like a cement board shingle or something like that on the outside, so we just haven't gotten even close to that conversation yet.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, that concludes our committee reports. Does any trustee have any other business to address tonight? No? Then we'll move on to my report. It being the first of the year, there are many reappointments or appointments to various boards and commissions. With your approval, I will plan to reappoint to the Economic Development Commission Renee Cozy for a 3-year term expiring in November 2021. J. Michael Locke for a 3-year term expiring in December 2021. And Jelani Rucker for a 3-year term expiring in November 2021. Also Craig Squallis for a 3-year term expiring in November 2021. For the Plan Commission, with your approval, I plan to reappoint Roger Hendrick for a 3-year term expiring in November 2021, Dennis Kelly for a 3-year term expiring in November 2021, and Scott McNaughton for a 3-year term expiring in December 2021. Liquor Control Commission, Dan Foster is the chair. He has agreed to continue on as the chair for a 3-year term expiring in December 2021. And also reappoint Michael McNeely for a 3-year term expiring in November 2021. Board of Zoning Appeals, Brandon Calvert for a 3-year term expiring in November 2021. Michael Pabian for a 3-year term expiring in November 2021. And Scott Tosk for a 3-year term expiring in December 2021. In addition, there's 2 appointments to the Infrastructure Commission. Dan Sieko for a 3-year term expiring in January 2022. And Thomas Matoye for a 3-year term expiring in January 2022. So if you all agree, we'll have that on the omnibus for our next meeting. And that concludes my report. Village Manager Veltney?
Yes, thank you, President Gallagher, and I'm going to tout a book here. Our own Western Springs resident, John Devona, has published a collection of his short stories. And they're of Western Springs, and it's the history, and this book will be available at the Historical Society, and proceeds will go to the Historical Society, and it is an excellent book. So I just wanted to make sure that you are aware of this publication. So
It really is. It's a compilation of so many stories and little vignettes of the history of Western Springs. Very interesting.
How far back does he go? To the,
Well,
when the town started type of
Yes.
thing?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
1896.
Very, very well written too.
And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Manager Belknap. Attorney Drusik?
No report tonight.
Thank you. We do not have a need to recess to close session. So I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We stand adjourned. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
So the intergovernmental agreement, that's not.
No, because staff hasn't really, and Mike, especially